I gotta show you this picture. They determined that they couldn't make a training spot there because of this little animal. That in the mountains, on the foothills of the mountains, are prairie dogs, and our landing field had so many holes that they determined they couldn't make an airport there, training field. So, okay.
What year was this?
About 39, I believe it was. I was probably 15 years old. I guess that's why the impression they put on me. So then after that, like in 1940 then, my stepdad was smoking cigarettes, and the name was Wings. Each package of cigarettes had a little picture of an airplane, so I learned the identifications of airplanes. Well, what's happening here? Anyway, then 41, of course. What happened in 41? December 7th.
Pearl Harbor.
World War was declared. So now, right away, it wasn't long after the war was declared that the food was rationed, and all the citizens were affected by the war now. You couldn't buy sugared coffee, it was rationed. They had food stamps that you had to turn in for food. And so everybody had the effect then of the war. In 42, I had been in the school, and every opportunity I had a sporting goods store that had a newsstand and magazines and stuff, and I read articles about the B-17s coming back from being shot pretty bad. So anyway, I sort of had it connected with this B-17 then. And then of course in 42, July of 42, I had just finished my junior year of high school and got a draft papers. I was drafted on the 12th of July in 1943. And I had to go to Denver, which is about 280 miles from where I was living, and have a medical examination. And while I was there, they gave us an immunity, the shots in the arms, 2 in this and 2 this, and I took 2 steps, and on this shoulder it felt like somebody hit me with a ball bat. I almost fainted. They had to help me out of the room to go back to where the sergeant was at the entrance. And when I got dressed and got back there, I heard the sergeant say, if any of you fellows have had a year or so of college, take one of the books there that's on the bench. It'll help you get into cadets. So I was the first one there to grab the book, but I haven't finished high school. But that's
yeah, they pulled him out of high school to be
so
in
anyway,
the war, but he grabbed the book anyway.
Was home for about a week and had to go back to Denver at Fort Logan was the induction center. And that's where I was inducted to the infantry, U.S. Army Infantry. Well, we had a couple of days there that we just take an IQ test and qualifications and stuff, and I passed high enough that was on that I got the I could be in the Air Corps. But I had to go to an eye test, and it was over to a different base, Larry Air Force Base in near Denver. And I went over there for an eye test. Are you ever been eye tested for color blindness? I was surprised so many were colorblind. There was 3 or 4 ahead of me, and I was the only one that wasn't colorblind. And then I had to go to another machine there that was about 8-10 feet long, and they had it was boxed in, and the corporal says, line the pins up, and there was a ropes you turned. Well, it was depth perception. You had to line them up. If you couldn't line them up, you couldn't be passed. So anyway, I passed them both and got into the Army Air Corps. And that was in 43. And right away then from Fort Logan, they sent me to Amarillo, Texas, and that was an Army Air Corps base. So there I had my basic training, and 6 weeks basic training, and during the time I was there, whoops, my tape didn't hold. So while I was there, they, in basic training, I had heard that if you didn't have a C+ average or better in cadets, you could go right to the infantry. They wouldn't keep you in the Air Force. So, okay, thank you. So anyway, hearing that there, and I never was a C+ average in school, and if you did anything wrong, didn't follow orders, they'd send you to the infantry. So anyway, then at an interview, the question and answers, they took us, asked a bunch of questions, and then at the end there, the colonel had a picture of an airplane. He says, "Can you identify this airplane?" And I says, "Yes, that's a P-39 Bella Cobra. It's got an Allison engine, and it's got the engine behind the seat of the pilot, because there's a cannon that shoots out the nose of the propeller, out the center of the propeller." I said, "I don't really like it because the engine's behind me, and I wouldn't like that." He said, "Well, you're ready to go in the cadets?" And I turned around and says, "No, I want to go to AM school."
What is that?
AM school for B-17. You learn all about it. I became an engineer on the B-17 through 12 weeks of schooling. And then I got the second job. I'm a top turret gunner. So now we're going to go into the I had from there, after the AM school, I had to go to gunnery school for the top turret guns. And then from there we went to Tampa, Florida for overseas training. And then from there we went to Savannah, Georgia by train, and our crew was picked up a brand new B-17 Flying Fortress, and we had to fly it all the way to Italy, but we had to go day at a time, and we had to land before sundown on each trip. And the first day off we landed at Trenton, New Jersey. And then in the morning when we took off, we got airborne and was flying along pretty nice. And we got attacked by 4 F-4U Navy planes. And I got a picture of this. No, they're on the other side over here. F-4U. Now this is Navy here. On this side here is Navy planes, and I'm sorry.
Were these American planes?
Yes, these here were these are the American airplanes that is about all we had in the beginning of the war. This was the Navy. And this is what they had. This is the first one was their older plane, and it was called the Dauntless Nautilus. And then this in here was the Navy plane at Grumman, that a lot of the Marines and Navy had that. And I missed 2 airplanes on our side. I didn't get a picture of the P-47 and a picture of, oh, yeah, this is another Navy airplane here. This is the Avante. It can carry 2 torpedoes, and that was very active over in the South Pacific.
What was it like being in a B-17 your first couple of times? What were you most surprised about when you were inside of one?
Well, the first time, I was in gunnery training, and it's the first time I had rode in the big airplane, and there were several of us that got to shoot a waist gun off of the waist of the B-17, and it was a terrible ride. It would lift out from under you, and you'd hit your ceiling, and then it'd raise up, and it'd sit you on the floor. I got sicker than a dog. They told me that if you get sick, you're disqualified for the Air Force. I said, well, I had a terrible breakfast and it bothered me. So they said, Saturday you'll be out on the ramp there ready to go. There'll be some others there, and you go try again. Saturday was a beautiful day. It was just smooth, and I got to shoot the gun out the waist, and I finished the training down there in Las Vegas.
What did it feel like shooting the gun? Is there a lot of kickback, or do you?
No, they're tied down pretty much, but the noise and stuff, and there's a little bit of a jolt to it.
Do you want to sit down?
I'm all right for a little while here.
This is,
Any other questions there?
hold it up.
We can start then on
This is
more or
what
less,
The top gunner
this covered
would be,
the
that's what
Navy
he did,
planes, and the planes then that we had
And
were
this
the
is- like what he's talking about.
P-38. That was my favorite airplane. If I'd have been a pilot, that would have been what I wanted to fly. But then there was this airplane, you might have heard about this in here, it's a F-40, Curtiss F-40 Flying Tiger. There was a movie, by the way, I got a list of, there's two movies you might get a hold of. One of them was The Flying Tigers, John Wayne was in that.
12
Another
O'Clock High.
was 12 O'Clock High, and the 12 O'Clock High was pretty authentic of the war programs. They had actual missions and actual things, and then the other movie was the Memphis Belle. The Memphis Belle was more about the airplane. It had been on 25 missions and never been shot down, of course. So they was going to send it back to the United States and try to raise sales on their bonds, or saving bonds, or whatever they called them then. So anyway,
So what is this hat that you're wearing?
well, I started a little ahead of stuff, but the fighter, this here is a P-51. It was the newest airplane we had in the service at that time, and it was flown by the color pilots from Tuskegee, and I got one of the hats. I met one of the pilots, and he signed the hat for me and gave it to me. It's Alexander Jefferson. He was at the Yankee Air Show at Willow Run, and I met him, and we got to talk together, and he gave me a hat and signed it.
So did the Tuskegee Airmen ever fly with you?
He was shot down. He didn't get to, but yes, they did. And when they were very good pilots, and they stayed with the planes close to them, and we never seen any fighter planes. I was very fortunate.
You never saw any of the enemy fighter planes when they were with you, you mean?
No,
Because
that's
they were
right.
so
I
good?
was going to say that I went on 23 missions, and when I first got over there was a P-38s. That small picture of theirs got a P-38 flying escort with a B-17. And then I didn't get into Italy until December the 27th of 44, and it was bad weather, winter, and we didn't go on the first mission until the 7th of January of 1945. And from then on, made 23 missions, and a lot of them we got shot at. That's the other board here. I sort of wanted to turn over to this. This is sort of what it was when we got over to Foggia, Italy. I brought the map to show you where Foggia was.
That,
And I'll open that up and I'll show you, told you, is, I thought it was in the center of the, here, let me, did I have a clip, metal clip? Yeah, there's one. We could clip her right up there. So if I can see good enough. I think there's a pencil strip about here. Is that Naples? Right there?
Yeah, I think so.
There's a lot of names of towns on here, and we can't hardly tell one from the other. But anyway, it's just about here, and Foggia was over here, almost to the other side. And we was at the 15th Air Force, 463rd Bomb Group, 774 Bomb Squad. Now a squad, if you've seen the book there, it's got the formation that we fly. A squad is 7 airplanes. And the one that's in the book there was a Berlin mission. That was our roughest mission. It had 6 airplanes of that 28 that got shot down. I know the lead plane and the pilot had went down, but they didn't crash. I don't know what happened to all of them, but the lead plane, they survived and were prisoners of war. And that's what I was going to say about the pilot there. He had been strafing on the French coast and had got shot down, so he was a prisoner of war. But the rest of his crew, then they replaced the P-38s, and we never seen a fighter, and we never seen a German fighter at all. In the book, I've got pictures of Japanese planes on the back side of it, and then there was the German fighter Me-109 was their greatest airplane. It shot down more of our B-17s than I like to talk about.
Was it worse to fly in bad weather, or was it worse to fly with flak?
Well, flak would be the worst thing. Every time we had flak, it was danger of being shot down. And some of the pictures on this other folder here is describing some of that. Here's a picture here of a lot of flak, and here's the guns underneath to shooting at them. And then this one here, there's 3 airplanes. One of them got crippled up. It's going to crash, and there's no way that anybody can get out of that airplane. And then I drew that picture, sort of illustrating its flak.
Did a piece of flak ever come inside of your plane?
Yes, it did. Let's see. I got a piece of metal here. I don't think this is the actual piece, but one about this size hit the top turret. I had an iron plating, bulletproof around my waist of a B-17, and a piece of metal like that hit that. That could have really damaged me if it hadn't hit that and dropped on the floor. And I happened to pick it up and keep it, but I'm sure this wasn't it because this got his saw mark on it. So, but it was this size.
Did anybody on any of your missions? Did anybody inside any of your crew members ever get hit?
None of us on our crew got hurt. That was a blessing. There's a picture of the bombs that we carried. There's a way we lined up there so close together to take off in the morning to go on a mission. We was about 30 seconds apart taking off. And you had to be very careful because of the prop wash. The pilots had to be on the ball to keep it from proper prop wash. So.
What about when it got really cold, or how was it flying when you got it to elevated and it got cold and you had to wear a mask? What was that like?
It was a little hindrance. he was pretty well covered up with clothing. We had a regular uniform, and then we had a suit that sit in there that plugged into electric, and then we had the wool, leather coats and pants, and the boots. It wasn't so bad. It's just that you was tied to your oxygen. You had a mask with oxygen, and had to be. You only had a certain distance you could go away from the tank. Yeah, I was saying a while ago, with these here pilots here, I'd never seen an enemy fighter, so we lucked out very much there.
Because of the red tails?
Yes.
Because of how good they were?
I think so, because the Red Tails was with us all the way pretty much. What did I do?
Yeah,
Knock something down.
the king.
So anyway,
Do you
I
guys have
feel
any
very
questions?
grateful. I mean that nobody on the crew got hurt. We had one of the missions, a piece of shrapnel hit a rudder cable. There was only about 4 strands of the cable to do the rudder. So it was my responsibility to tell the pilots what to do or what not to do, so I advised them not to use the rudder on their landing. And we was on our way back from a mission, and anyway, advised him not to use the rudder, and we landed okay. And then the Berlin mission was the worst mission we went on. It was the longest. It was over 9 hours. And we had shrapnel hit number 2 engine and killed it right off the bat before we ever got to the target to drop our bombs. We flew the distance to drop our bombs with the rest of the airplanes, and got rid of the bombs and got away from the target area and the flak. And number 4 engine had an oil leak, and oil was coming over the top of the air of the wing, and I had to use some judgment on how safe is it to fly that engine without oil. So we kept it. We could keep it running until we got out of into the safe area, and then we shut that one down too before it run out of gas and caught on fire. So it saved us to get home. I had 2 milk runs. The milk run is what happens. You don't see any fighters, and you don't get shot at with flak, and they call it a milk run. Well, our milk runs weren't always milk runs. In the book there, I had a picture of what happened on one side of our airplane. It was the right side of the vertical stabilizer. There was a bullet that went through there, left a hole about the size of a football would going in, but on the other side, it came out like this. But actually, if it had exploded on contact, like it normally would, we'd have lost our tail and lost our lives, because we wouldn't have been able to get out of the airplane. Okay.
What was it like did you ever look inside the ball turret?
I did one time. Ball turrets are tight, very tight. You're all cramped up there. Your knees are almost up to your shoulders. Our ball turret gunner was only about 4 foot tall, so it fit pretty well. Oh, the other milk run was supposed to be a milk run, and a ball turret gunner screamed over the intercom, "Don't shut the bomb bay doors. You've got a bomb hanging in front of my face." And anyway, I opened the bomb bay door and looked, sure enough. So anyway, I ended up straddling the bomb bay when I had a little escape hatch that I reached down and untangled what it was hung on, and it fell free. There again, if we hadn't got right in the bombs have a little, the nose of it, the front of it is a detonator. It's got a little propeller on it, and it spins 300 RP revolutions and drops off. The bomb is armed. If it's jolted, it'll blow up the bomb. and fortunately, I got rid of the bomb before it lost its propeller.
So a B-17 from this wall, how big, how long is it? Just so we can get a perspective. Is it as long as this room or longer?
It's longer in your room. It's longer in the room. Not a whole lot longer than this. The wingspan was 103 feet 9 inches, the width of the wing. Now, after the war ended, in May, they took and stripped our B-17 down to a passenger plane. They put bench seats in the waist. And we started flying from Foggia. They moved us over to Naples. And so we started flying from Naples to Casablanca on Morocco. And then we'd go and stay overnight about 90 miles from there, and then fly back, and then we had a day off. We did that from May until the beginning of, the end of September. And then we had an airplane assigned to us to take a load of infantrymen home, and we'd fly all the distance home with the same airplane. Well, we got to Casablanca. Well, we got off the ground at Naples. We lifted off the ground, and we could smell gas, fumes, in the waist of the airplane. No smoking today. So anyway, when we landed at Casablanca, one of our wing tanks, the main wing tank on the left side, holds about 250 gallons of fuel. It had a leak, and they'd sent all of their maintenance crew home from the terminal. So I'm the engineer. I had the infantrymen help me, and we took and got the old tank off, and they didn't have a new one, so they'd have to bring it from the States. So they had to fly it in the next day, and we got it put back together. Then we was on our way home. We flew from there to Dakar, I think it is, Central Africa. Then we flew 10 hours over to Brazil. We had less than 5 minutes of gas fuel left, and a pilot calls the navigator and says, "Where's our airport? We've got less than 5 minutes of fuel. We've reached land, but we can't see the airport." So anyway, the navigator says, "Well, turn to the right a few degrees, you'll see it right away." And fortunately, we did before we run out of gas.
So you came back to Grosjean?
Huh?
You came back to Grosjean in your plane? Where?
I'm sorry.
Brazil.
Oh, Brazil.
Brazil.
Oh, Brazil. Yeah,
I thought
Brazil.
he said
Yeah,
Grosjean.
Brazil.
I thought we flew over the Bermuda Triangle, where they've lost a lot of our planes, but we weren't close to it. But from there we had two more stops. There was British Guiana and the island Puerto Rico, and then we flew from there into Tawas City, West Tawas City of Florida, and I don't remember getting back to Denver and got discharged.
So do you guys have any questions?
Yeah.
Did you choose to be a Top Gunner?
No, that came along with the job. But that was great for me because I was always in the cockpit. That was my job. And on takeoff, I read the airspeed. 108 miles, 110 miles, we could be off of the ground. And then in the landings, I was the same thing, count the airspeed. So one day while I was in Tampa, Florida, they let me fly once in a while. Anyway, we was on a flight and skeleton cruise, 5 men. That's a navigator, 2 pilots, and a radio operator, and a flight engineer. Always goes with that B-17. That's a standard situation. So anyway, we were flying, and I asked a pilot if the co-pilot, he likes to go to the radio room and talk to the radio operator, so I get to sit in his seat. So I asked the captain if I could stall the B-17.
Stall.
Well, that's an unusual thing to do. He says, you'll have to get up higher, so we went up to about 10,000 feet. And then he says, okay, it's yours. So I was pulling back on the stick and waiting, and all of a sudden like that, and I pushed it forward. I got to stall the B-17 108 miles an hour.
How old were you?
Huh?
How old were you when you did that?
Well, I was
19,
probably
20?
No, I was 20, 21 maybe
Yeah.
by then. 20.
Young
I
guy,
think.
you know, speed.
So anyway.
all.
So I got to fly every once in a while, and I had a picture here where I'm just going above the ground in Italy. That was still in Foggia, and I so low that I scared a sheep herder.
This is the one picture was in there. He was showing him what he
running
did.
for cover. Anyway, I had a lot of fun, and I was very fortunate the whole thing. So anyway,
Any other questions?
yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Anything I can think of?
Yeah, go ahead.
Did your crew get along together? Did your...
Oh, most of the time. Most of the time. There was a little bit of conflicts. They named our crew Tasfugia. Things are so messed up, it's amazing. So, the tail gunner was a Frenchman, sort of, and he had different ideas than the rest of us in a lot of ways, and getting into trouble and stuff.
Like
I
what
know
kind?
it-
What kinds of things?
Well, we'd go out to a nightclub to drink or something, or get together. Well, he would go around where people would get up, a couple of them get up to go dance. He'd go drink our drinks. So, I don't know. Sort of things like that. You know.
Who?
When we flew usually around 20-some thousand feet, normally about 28,000 feet for a bomb mission. The bomber would only, maximum altitude was 32,000. I got that little picture in the back, front of there. I slipped in it. I just brought this along to show you. This is the fastest airplane in the world. Have you seen or heard of it? I was going to Colorado one year, and I heard over the radio that it was on the ground at Bellevue, Kansas. And I said we were going to stop and see it on the way back. But that airplane flies 3,000 miles an hour.
Wow.
I think it's still the top speed airplane, and its high altitude is 90,000 feet.
And you flew at 3,000 feet usually?
Huh?
And you threw 3,000 feet is what you guys were at usually?
No, 30.
Oh, 30.
28,000.
Oh,
Oh,
28.
28,000, okay.
This would go 90,000.
Wow.
Okay.
3 times as
Wow.
high.
So when you were not on base, you talked about going to the nightclubs. Did you get more attention from the ladies because you were in the Air Force?
I never went to a nightclub.
There you go.
Well, I
Still
would say
denies
that,
it.
yes, they would, was.
Enemy's daughter.
That the movie, The Red Tails, has the color group, and they were flying, and he was ready to get married and got shot down, one of them, when he was engaged to get married.
Did you have any, at the time, when you found out the Red Tails were the ones protecting you, did you have any feelings about having African American pilots with you?
No, glad to have him. As soon as I met the one that gave me the hat at the Willow Run, as soon as I found out that he was there, I went over and introduced myself and talked to him. And then the second time I seen him, he gave me the hat. So,
Why were you glad to have them?
yeah, yes.
But why?
Well, they kept close to us. Sometimes the airplanes wouldn't fly as close to you and have a chance for enemy fighters to get in between you, and
So they did a better job, you think?
I think so.
Yeah, they protected them so they could get the bombs.
Brought Grandpa home safe.
Anything else?
Was it more dangerous to land or take off?
Everything that goes up comes down. But when we took off, being so close together, that was dangerous too. And nobody had an upset, but then that was really dangerous. Coming in, our landing strip was not a good cement driveway like out to the airport here. There was metal that they used to make road beds through the mud and stuff. So it was a little unlevel, and it's a little touchy coming in for a landing. We never had a misspoke, but the airplane that we flew over, it apparently crashed on a landing. But I think what happened was it was on a assignment of a mission and was totally loaded and had something mishap, but it had to return to base, and they landed it when it was too heavy, and it crashed and burned up, and 10 men was killed. And that was the one that we had flown over. And then there was one other one that exploded on the ground, but I think the passengers got out of it. So.
Well, we don't have a lot more time, so I want to give you guys a chance to come up and look at the pictures and ask questions. So thank you very much for coming in, being here, preparing all of these pictures. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And if you guys would like to come in and get up, stand up, go take a look at the pictures. And
There he is.
Here? Did
Yeah.
they say that?
Yep, I'm gonna set it up here so they